We're breaking down Spider-Man No Way Home's ending and mid-credit scenes. Happy Marvel Movie Spoilers Day, friends! After all the cast announcements, trailer breakdowns, and theories, the theories, we finally know what actually happens in Spider-Man No Way Home.
I'm sorry, you're saying there's a multiverse?
Pretty wild, right? In this episode of Nerdist News, we're breaking down the ending of the movie plus the mid-credits scene and what both mean for the future of the MCU. Or if you'd rather just read all about it, Rosie Knight has you covered over on Nerdist.com. So, if you haven't seen the movie and you want to go in unspoiled, then make like Doctor Strange and lock this video in a pocket dimension until you do. Here we go. At the end of the movie, you know what? I really just want to make sure that everybody knows this video is going to be full of spoilers. Matt, can you please flash the spoiler thing?
What just happened?
Okay, for real this time. Spoilers. The movie ends with Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. Kind of. Though Tom Holland has been Spider-Man for 6 MCU movies now, it took until No Way Home for him to fully reach the point where most Spider-Mans begin. He's alone, nobody knows who he is, and he's just a kid trying to afford rent.
Give me rent.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
To prevent total multiversal mayhem, Peter has the Sorcerer Less Supreme cast his spell properly. This makes it so not only do the other Spider-Mans and their respective villains return to their original universes, but that everybody forgets Peter Parker even exists. Not just that Peter and Spider-Man are the same people, nobody even knows who Peter Parker is. This is one of the saddest and yet most fitting endings of a Spider-Man movie we've ever seen. Peter Parker began the movie poised to join MJ and Ned at MIT, but now they don't even know who he is, and what's more, they're happy. Add to that the tragic death of Aunt May at the hands of the Green Goblin earlier in the movie, and our hero's journey ends with him friendless, familyless, and scholarshipless. This really is the meaning of, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And yes, I did say it that way on purpose. This is what Aunt May says to Peter just before she dies, which is a direct reference to the actual first appearance of that oft-quoted adage. Uncle Ben didn't say it in Amazing Fantasy number 15. It was a caption in one of the panels. Anyway, back to the ending. Without Aunt May, and Peter apparently doesn't even have an Uncle Ben in this universe. Anyway, that's a different thing. People still know Spider-Man.
Hey! You're that Spider guy on YouTube, right?
Call me Spider-Man!
J. Jonah Jameson, the movie's stealth Sinister Six member, if you ask me, still hates the web slinger, and Happy Hogan and Peter talk about both meeting May through Spider-Man at her grave, but to the world he's just an unknown vigilante. Now, the implications of this are quite interesting. He's no longer an Avenger, it seems, but the Avengers still know Spider-Man exists. Peter could, if he wants to, swing over to the Sanctum Sanctorum and just introduce himself to Stephen Strange. But Peter doesn't want that. As Strange says earlier in the movie, he can't be both a superhero and a normal guy. As the movie ends, we see Peter move into a crappy apartment with his GED prep books and sews himself a new Spider-Man suit, which has the classic comic book colors. He's an anonymous hero with a homemade suit. By comic book standards, he's at the beginning of his Spider-Man journey. It's an incredibly smart way to reset a lot of the issues fans have had with this Spidey. Peter as an immediate Avenger and outfitted with weapons from Tony Stark is a far cry from the street-level hero fans love. But that's where we leave Peter now. He's only got himself to rely on, a tragic loss driving him, and that beautiful classic suit. Whether and how often we see Tom Holland's new loner version of Peter is anyone's guess. There is talk there will be another Sony trilogy of films with Tom Holland's involvement, but who knows if that will be 3 more full Spider-Man movies. And we have even less idea if those future movies will connect to the MCU. That's for Kevin Feige, Amy Pascal, and about 1 million lawyers to work out.
What we're going to do in the future is not something we're going to talk about, but there are possibilities.
Now, on to the mid-credits scene. Some fans assumed, given the post-credits scene in Venom Let There Be Carnage, that we'd see Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock fight alongside or maybe even against the trio of Spider-Mans. This was not to be, however. We did get some classic Eddie and Venom weirdness in No Way Home's mid-credits scene. We find Eddie in full vacation mode in Mexico, but it's the Mexico of the MCU, meaning he wasn't anywhere near New York to get involved in the movie's actual plot. He's interviewing a bartender played by Ted Lasso's Cristo Fernandez about how this universe has superheroes aplenty. Also, presumably, about how football is life. Eddie and his symbiote friend that only he can hear have some of the most sweaty Tom Hardy grimacing his lines of all time. Eddie is most confused by the existence of superheroes, whom he calls super people. He recaps some of what he's learned, describing Tony Stark as a man in a tin suit. He also mentions the green guy, whom the bartender confirms is Hulk. We then hear Venom pipe up with, "And you thought Lethal Protector was a shit name.
If to save the day, can we call ourselves the Lethal Protector?
It's so 80s.
Eddie still believes that it is, and just as he's coming to terms with his new home, he's magicked away. However, and this is the big thing, a piece of the symbiote remains behind on the bar. Can you put a dramatic sting here, Matt? This naturally raises a few questions. First, while funny, how did the spell transport Eddie to the MCU?
What the hell is that?
The stipulation was that it had to be someone who knew Spider-Man was Peter Parker. This is most likely explained via Venom itself, as the symbiotes have a hive mind, and the Venom from Tobey Maguire's universe did in fact know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Hey, Parker.
So all Venoms knew that, we guess. It could also be because Eddie watched the MCU Jameson broadcast dropping the dime on Peter from the post-credits scene of Venom 2. But that makes even less sense given the parameters of Doctor Strange's spell. Either way, it was just for the lulz. But then, how did that little piece of the symbiote stay if it was the Venom hive mind that knew the Peter Parker truth? The real answer is that Kevin Feige and co. probably really wanted the symbiote in the MCU. So now it is. Narratively, the answer could be that the symbiote was disconnected from the host, so the spell might have missed it. Another option is that Fate/Kang Watch, or Doctor Strange has a reason for the symbiote staying. Either way, now it's in the MCU.
And I'm free!
The more pressing question is who will be the host for the Venom symbiote in the MCU? We doubt they'll bring Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock in now that they've done this joke, and it doesn't seem all that plausible for Sony to want to muddy the proverbial waters with two sitting Eddies Brock. Who are they? DC? So will it find Peter? Maybe. Another option is a character who has already been in all three of the MCU Spider-Man films, Flash Thompson.
Peter Parker, what's up?
In the comics, the symbiote attaches to Flash and he becomes the militarized hero Agent Venom. Eddie and Flash were always kind of the same type of character, for being completely honest. Plus, how cool would it be if Tony Revolori's wannabe Spider-Man bestie became his next big villain?
Sup, dickwad?
But it's not like there isn't a history in the comics of Venom symbiotes taking a million other characters as host. Certainly the makers of Funko Pop vinyl figures want you to remember that. So who's to say what the future holds? Maybe we'll get a Venom Danny Rojas. Football is Venom life. Spider-Man No Way Home didn't have a post-credits scene per se, but it did have a whole trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which we'll cover in a different video.
I'm sorry, you're saying there's a multiverse?
For now, that's what we know about Spider-Man and his future within the MCU. He wears clothes he made himself, has no friends, and can't pay his bills. Just as Stan and Steve intended. And if you'd rather just read all about it, Rosie Knight has you covered over on Nerdist.com. But now, tell us, what did you make of the ending of Spider-Man No Way Home? Are you happy with Peter Parker flying solo?
Ooh, yeah, I'm okay.
Let us know in the comments below, and for more of the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, keep it glued to Nerdist.com.